afternoon. Well, after a week of sub-zero temperatures, it's the 15th of February and it's a lovely, balmy, sunny, if slightly windy day. Still nowhere to go because we're still in lockdown, so the one place I haven't taken you is our local town, Syston. Been here for 1,000 years or so. Appears in the Doomsday Book as Syston, and its name's variously changed until Syston as it's known today. Small village for most of that time. It's only really grown over the last 200 years when the industry first weaving, frame knitting and then shoes and hosiery caused it to grow substantially, and for most of its time it's been a village. Only became a town in 1987. So let's have a little look round the town or metropolis of Syston. So the funny thing about Syston is that there wasn't anything here before about 1,000 years ago. Given the fact the Romans built one of their superhighways, the Fosse Way, right past this area, you'd think that there would have been settlements before the Anglo-Saxons came around about 1200 years ago to settle this area. As we've seen, this area is basically settled by the Danes and the Anglo-Saxons, which is why there's so many names ending in B, the Danish for settlement around here. But it seems that nothing was here until the Danes and the Anglo-Saxons came and formed the little village. And basically it stayed a little village until a number of things happened. Firstly, the Enclosure Act dispossessed quite a lot of the people with common grazing rights on the land. Secondly, the canal came, the Leicester branch of the Grand Union Canal. And thirdly, in the sort of 1840s or so, the Midland Railway came, connecting Syston to Leicester and Melton Mowbray. So industry started in lieu of farming. First frame knitting in people's lofts and houses. Then as the hosiery trade declined, they moved into shoemaking, although it wasn't as big a shoemaker as Leicester and Sileby nearby. And now it's really a dormitory town of Leicester to some extent, although it's got its own nice little community, which we're going to find out about. And some great shops, great restaurants, great pubs, and still some world-beating industries. And the first place we come to here is Reek Valley Academy, big secondary school. Still think it looks like a prison, but I guess it's an example of optimistic 60s postmodernist architecture. Of course it's closed at the moment, otherwise might get arrested for filming a school. The one thing we do have close to the school is the leisure centre, swimming pool, gym. So it's a great resource for Syston town. So here are Syston allotments. Quite a thriving allotment society here. In this nice weather I can already see round the corner some people getting busy on whatever they're growing, I guess. And here's Syston Church. Beautiful old church. No bigger than the churches we've seen in Thrussington, Ratby, Hoby and all these other little villages around this valley, but of course when it was built initially in the 13th century, having been enlarged in the 15th century, Syston was just a little village, the same as all those others. It's just that Syston's grown much more than they have. And not surprisingly, if we walk up this little track path of church, we're going to end up in the oldest part of Syston, the bit that dates back to when it was just a little village. Interestingly, for a lot of the time, this church was owned by the University of Oxford, of all people, who incidentally also got quite a lot of land under partition around this area. I don't quite know what links the University of Oxford had to this part of the world, but no wonder the people of Syston were quite poor and the University of Oxford is quite rich. Impressive old building, now owned by the Syston District Conservative Club. Signs of the old frame knitting business and this old building in the corner of High Street and Chapel Street. Those big galleried windows for the upper story frame rooms where the whole family used to knit. So let's walk down here past the Dog and Gun and find the brook. Here we are, the Dog and Gun. Can't wait for this place to open and have a pint and skydive before going off to the Taraj Palace, of course, which I'll show you later on in this video. And here we have Syston's Masonic Hall, built in 1905. Knocked down a school to build the Masonic Hall. Hopefully there were no children in it. And it was extended in 1915 and had a second story put on in 1930. It's lovely in there, allegedly, although of course we're not really allowed in. So what I'm going to do, I think, is walk down the brook. It's not Syston Brook, it's actually Barkby Brook. We saw it a few videos ago when it was going through Barkby. So we'll go down here and find the remnants of Syston's industrial heritage. And you can see a bit of Syston's industrial present poking out behind the trees here on the other side of this rather pleasant brook, facing this lovely green open space called the Donkey Park. No idea why. So we're just coming up to the first bridge across the brook, which carries the branch line from the Midland Main Line, formerly the London Midland Scottish Railway, and carries it on towards Melton, Stamford, Peterborough, March, Ely, Cambridge and Stansted Airport. So we get to walk through this little no man's land between the two railway lines. And then you come to this bridge, which is the Midland Main Line itself, heading off towards Derby and Nottingham. So down there's the way to the Grand Union Canal. Cossington, Sileby, Rothley, and those nice riverside walks. But it's not about riverside walks today, it's about finding out about Syston. So we're going to head down here. Incidentally, we're now walking down the Fosse Way. So 2,000 years ago, you can imagine Roman soldiers walking down this exact route. And this is where my nose has led me. See what I've done there? This is pucker pies. Now I guess they're a bit like Marmite. You either love them or hate them, I guess. I love them. Quintessential. Friday night. Couple of beers, pucker pie and chips. Started by Trevor and Valerie Storer in 1963 as Trevor Storer's Homemade Pies. No looking back since. So out of that little industrial area, back onto the top of the High Street. I can't tell you how gorgeous the smell was round there. And here's another one of Syston's great pubs, the Queen Vic. Used to play here with my covers band Badge. Had some great nights. And I guess the thatched roofs start to give it away that we're heading back into Syston's medieval centre. So down the aptly named Brook Street to the brook to find the remnants of Syston's shoe and textile industry. This is a nice street running along the back of the high street. It's one of the earlier expansions of Syston in the 19th century. Although interestingly, the houses on the other side of the street, quite a few of them are new, suggesting perhaps there were factories there that have been torn down and infill housing made. It's just a nice established old street. Look at that stupendous old house there. And here's another one of Syston's pubs. Played in that one as well. Said to be a bit rough and ready, but I thought it was all right. And it wouldn't take a historical genius to work out that the name of this pub suggests that we're by the railway, and there's Syston Station in its modern form, site of the origin of many an adventure. And hopefully, in future videos on this channel, it will be again. The original Syston Station was closed in the 1960s, but this one reopened, I think, in the 1980s as part of the Ivanhoe line from Leicester to Loughborough. So Syston now has a link to the outside world. So down here, heading towards the wind turbine at Rothley, not a windmill, that was just me being romantic, and back onto the Fosse Way to find the remnants of Syston's industrial past. So back to following in the footsteps of Roman centurions. So in previous videos you may have heard me describe the A46 as the Fosse Way, and in fact that's true. This road goes up to a little roundabout, then a slip road, then comes onto the A46, which continues the route of the Fosse Way. And here we have Fosse Fitness, a building with a lot of history. So, in the 1960s, this was a factory and headquarters of an organisation called Sweater Shop, one of Syston's major employers. They went bust, I think, in the 1980s or early 1990s. In 1973, Bill Adderley opened up a stall selling textiles on Leicester Market, and by 1999 that business had become so large it was called Dunelm, and they needed a headquarters, so they bought this off Sweater Shop. So this was the headquarters of Dunelm, which I think everyone's heard of. They've moved on now to smart new accommodation not too far away from here in Watermead Industrial Estate. This building once again became empty and was taken over by this gym, and that's what it's been ever since. So, bit of history there of Syston's industrial heritage. And opposite we've got the Cambridge Satchel Company. New looking building, but this was Road Shoes. Good to see that it's still in leather goods, if not shoes. Okay, detour over. Let's head on down Melton Road, Syston's main drag, and see what Syston has to offer. Well, the one thing you're not short of in Syston is takeaways. You like Chinese, Turkish, Indian, Italian, Syston's a perfect place for you. Favourite place in Syston. Brilliant Indian restaurant. Perfect place to go after a couple of pints in the steaming billy pub, the Dog and Gun. Males men's salon. Brilliant place. Who needs to pay more than £9 for a haircut? Bet it's more than £9 in there. Well, not one, but two supermarkets right next door to each other, fiercely competing. Shout out to Ken, drummer in Badge, who I've already mentioned, who used to own that shop, or at least part of it. And just in case you were still wondering whether Syston was a proper town, it's got all the charity shops. It's got a Wilkinson's, it's got a Subway, it's got a Greggs, and it's got a Costa. And this slightly confusing roundabout is the hub of Syston. It used to have a war memorial in the middle of it, but where's it gone? They put it here, in Syston's Central Park. So now we're heading down Barkby Road. This is where Syston gets very interesting. So here we have Syston Cemetery. Fascinating building. It says 1879 on it, but if you look at the 1830 map, there was a cemetery here then, obviously on the outskirts of town, or even separate from town then, but the town has since engulfed it. So let's nip down here between the houses off Barkby Road into a completely different world. So I'm going to head up Mowbray Drive to see if I can see any evidence of Syston's sports stadium that was home to Speedway and then Greyhound racing until the 1960s when it was demolished. And you can see evidence that there was something here, because on that side of the road they're definitely at least 1950s housing stock, whereas on this side of the road the housing stock is clearly much newer, probably 1960s or early 70s. Well, apart from the fact that it goes round in a curve, there's not really much evidence that this once was a Greyhound stadium, but this is where it was according to the map. So, on that damp squib, I'll sign off. Just walking out of this estate into the newest of Syston's estates, the outer onion skin of the ever-growing town. Head back to Quenebra and then home. So I hope you've enjoyed this tootle round Syston, my local town. Place of many a happy night out in better times, and looking forward to them again in the future. Keep tuned, lots of exciting things to come on this channel once we can get moving, but until the next time, see ya.